You're tuned in to the MtG Cabal cast, where they cover Magic, the Gathering finance. All right? You don't know about it? You're tuned in right now and get ready to learn some shit. Buckle your seatbelts and light a blunt and get ready for the MtG Cabal cast. Starring Reptar and Thirsty, them onion head motherfuckers.
Alrighty, welcome to the newest episode of the Cabal cast. And this week, something I never thought we would be doing an episode on is there's some changes going on at WotC, seemingly based on some information being put out on, blogs, X, whatever, that maybe there's change in the winds at Hasbro and Wizards of the Coast. And it started with a Blogatog post from MaRo and kind of trickled down from there. So with that, let's take it away.
Right. So this is the post to MaRo's Tumblr, basically saying, this person says, I'm trying to speak out with my wallet. I've been doing that for a minute. Am I just complaining here? Should I be complaining here? Because WotC needs to start releasing fewer products per year because you're just doing this at the expense of the customer. And MaRo basically says, complaining here is helpful. This is a message that is being communicated by many players, and it is being conveyed by me and others that interact the most with the public to the people making the calls about how many products we produce. And so at the end of the day, what this individual who posted is saying is basically what everybody's been saying for the last, 2-ish years, which is just this flood of product is too much for the market to bear. Things are devaluating too quickly. Products aren't being opened or engaged with. Products are poor because they are just retreads. There's just not a lot of space to breathe in the calendar. And MaRo's response back is basically that he's saying the quiet part out loud, which is WotC knows that Hasbro is squeezing them too hard for new products. Like that's what this boils down to. And it is fantastic to finally see somebody saying this because there are a lot of concerns about what's going on. And if you follow us on Twitter, if you follow Ben S. on Twitter, Michael Toa, you'll see that basically a lot of vendors have the same problems here. And they all stem from something that is just easily solvable by cutting back on the deluge of product. And when you flood the market like this as a vendor, you're going to tax my category specialists in every aspect. And my category specialists are people who work only in Magic. They do nothing else. As a vendor, I have that luxury. As an LGS, I know you don't. So when I say my category specialists are taxed, like we have too many SKUs for each item already. We've had them for years. Ben S. has been at WotC for this, trying to figure out how many unique SKUs do we have to set up as a company? How many variants are you putting out here? Because your inability in some sets to put X over Y on the bottom of a card really doesn't help us anymore when it's just X. I need to know what I need to do. And when it comes to creating listings for an entire category, you have sealed, you have singles, you have everything else that comes with that. The tokens get inventoried, like every piece.
Cards get inventoried. Everything.
Every piece of product and copy comes in with that. Then you have the tracking prices and updating those prices as necessary when you have several hundred or maybe over 1,000 different versions of cards. Now my product specialists have to sit there and spend more time per day. Maybe not repricing by hand, it is most likely automated by now, but verifying large swings in price because we will notify when there's a large enough delta between prices that, hey, maybe you should check in on this. Or if our inventory is dangerously low, do we have to adjust buy list prices because you still want that little bit of human interaction on the back end just to make sure.
Yep.
Now, we also have to watch sales to determine product spend against others in the upcoming catalog, and this is directly influenced by what's going on. Like, what can we afford to spend now on a product we have no details on, but need to order while having enough money for the next same style solicitation in a month? It'll be another product that we have no idea about. That's the way things work now. Like, how do we keep doing this? We have to, watch sales for a day, That's hyperbolic. Like a couple of weeks to figure that out, right? But it's not a lot of time to turn this around, especially if Magic is our only vertical, one of many verticals. Maybe we just kind of slide things back and forth, because when you're as a vendor and you have the luxury of buying into multiple categories at once, it is kind of a flow across categories of Magic releases here, Yu-Gi-Oh releases here, Pokemon is here, One Piece is here, Fab is here. All right, so our money just kind of swings through it all. Now you have to just dedicate more to Magic. Maybe, maybe you don't.
Yeah, and I think that this has been a cacophony from vendors, LGSs, players everywhere for a while now. And I think that, the thing that kind of prompted us to say, well, maybe we want to take a look at this is the change in the secret layer model. Because obviously the production issues were not exclusive to the pandemic. We're still overproducing, we're still over manufacturing, and we're still seeing product delays with every single release. Some collector boosters, set boosters, draft boosters, or I guess play boosters going forward, whatever they're called. But there's been some kind of delay because of that. And that creates additional taxing on all of this, because now, okay, I ordered a certain amount of set boosters expecting to have those sold at pre-release weekend.
Yeah.
Well, now there's a delay in those. So now I have to worry about that as well. And it's one thing to release a product every 3 months. The old cadence, it was every 3 months there was your mainline set release, and then there were 2 supplemental set releases a year of like a spring anthology and a winter or fall anthology. Not an anthology, but some kind of like master set.
Yeah.
And it was a lot easier to keep up with then. And part of the problem now is, as you're saying, we're creating so much pressure on LGSs, on vendors to understand. I mean, Baldur's Gate, when it came out, Ben had that tweet that was, what was it, like 997 SKUs for the set?
Yeah, something like that.
How is that tenable? And in some way, I don't know if it is a production thing or what, the first step of, hey, we're changing back to the old secret layer model, it says they might be hearing this kind of.
Yeah.
I mean, I hope that that's what it is. It's that the speaking with your wallet, that people buying fewer products or fewer people engaging with fewer products just makes things a little bit better. And it's awful for us as an LGS because, I mean, look, we have to plan based on our release cadence, not just around Magic, but like you said, everything else. There's a lot of hand-to-mouth LGSs that have to worry, okay, I've got this month I have Lost Caverns of Ixalan. I also have Quarter Century Yu-Gi-Oh! I also have Paldea Skies. Okay, what am I going to prioritize?
Yeah.
This time of year, which market is better for me? And that makes it harder and harder for the LGS ecosystem to exist, which makes it harder and harder not just for Magic to exist, but every other card game as well. Because one of the things we focus on here is obviously how Magic relates to the LGS, because this is a Magic Finance podcast, but it actually does impact every other card game as well.
Yeah, when your money's tied up in one thing, it can't be moved to another.
Yeah, and one of the problems that I think has started to happen with all of these releases is Wizards tells us every release is the most highly allocated release ever at this point. RVR, is that the 3-digit code?
It,
yeah. They asked 3 or 4 times, how much do you want? Do you want more? By the way, this is the last time we're going to ask because this is so highly allocated. And it feeds into that, when everything is special, nothing is special mindset of, why would I go deep on this Magic set? There's going to be another one in a month. I guess I'll just get, 10 cases and call it a day with that. And it's not healthy for vendors. It's not healthy for a competitive scene to exist, because if nobody has the product, then you don't have the cards to play. Mm-hmm. It's not healthy for LGSs. It's just not a good look. And I think one of the hardest things, as a vendor, correct me if I'm wrong, you usually have a few more tools to track some of this stuff. You have your data reports for your website, for your in-store POS, whatever the case is, or even just knowing, hey, I look at this inventory every single day to go through it, and I'm stocking the cases every show, so I know what moves.
Yep.
At an LGS, we've got, 15, 20 employees. So they might not all know what's moving well, and that creates more pressure on us to spend more time away from customers educating our staff. Yep. And it just doesn't feel good to have that deluge of constant stuff. And the worst part is, and I'm sure it's the same for you, look, we're dealing with a release every 3 weeks. not to mention having to track all the secret layers. I didn't know that like half the secret layers that are out because I never saw them. That explains why Demonic Consultation is a $2 card now. Cool.
Yep.
Not that it is, but it's just as an example, there's a lot that falls through the cracks, and that makes it a lot worse as a customer because I get a worse experience because the staff is less knowledgeable. But sorry.
Yeah, no,
that was my rant.
It's an interesting gap that we talk about every now and again, which is just as a vendor, I have the opportunity to put people full time on knowing what is coming out on Magic the Gathering, the product releases, the schedule, repricing, etc. Right? I can assign full time employees to that. As an LGS, you cannot. You just have to rely.
It's just managers have to know, or I have to rely on my employees finding it out in their own time.
Exactly. Or exactly. Their own time on their way in or on breaks, reading through whatever they can. Like, this is coming out, this is what's next, because Lord knows trying to watch those Twitch streams as an LGS is probably nigh impossible to find the time to actually concentrate on.
No.
So it kind of is what it is in that regard. And when it becomes overwhelming for a company that can dedicate full-time employees to learning the product schedule and dealing with that, then maybe there's a problem to begin with, and you can't.
Why do you need that? Yeah.
Not every problem can be solved by throwing bodies at it. Not everybody is Zap Brannigan, and they're not always fighting the kill bots. Like, this is not every problem.
They have a preset kill limit.
Exactly.
Knowing this, I sent wave after wave
of my own men. Yeah, exactly. Like, you can't that's not that part of the human problem. It just can't be solved that way. And that comes into the second bullet point I have that we're kind of dancing around, is that the stress on WotC to create as many unique game pieces in a year has got to be ridiculous. And I think the word burnout covers everything in that regard, because it's got to happen at WotC when you're just like, okay, we have 4 sets a year plus like 2 relevant supplementals that need to be under 50% reprints, plus commander sets to come out with those 4 sets a year, plus maybe one of the other large summer supplementals, and those commander decks have to be about.
Universes Beyond gets their own set too.
Yeah, so the commander decks need to be like 45 to 55% unique cards. So it's just like, this is a problem that you're just throwing people out at, but it never stops, and they have to work faster and harder, and you're going to burn them out. And at the same time, vendors are going to burn out their Magic specialists because there is just no end to the product schedule. They can't focus on the entirety of their job. They have to do more in less. And then it's going to roll down to the LGS level, where it's the same thing. At the LGS, something has to give at some point. And for my old LGS, it was just selling Magic singles because they couldn't stand to reprice everything every day or look up prices during a sale. It was actually more financially sound for them to just liquidate all of their singles and move in on Gunpla instead.
Yeah.
Because you just buy that from, not Fundament, you buy it from Bandai, you slap a sticker on it, and it sits on a shelf until it sells. You don't reprice it until you need to fire sell it.
Exactly.
So much easier.
Yeah, it's sad that we've almost gotten to the point where it is, hey, look, it's easier to just abandon this vertical altogether.
Yep.
But that's kind of where it is.
Yeah.
And that feels terrible as a vendor to say, look, this was my bread and butter. I have a great community, but like, it's getting hard to keep up with. And the fact that in some way, it seems that people in charge are now like, yeah, man, keep doing it. Hopefully it'll work.
Yeah.
I think that's a good sign. Maybe I'm wrong, but I think that's a good thing.
I think it's, for me, it's hard to figure out if this is just, MaRo throwing his hands up and saying, yeah, please. Like, we can only do so much. Or it is just, maybe he was tone deaf for however long, right? I don't know.
And now we saw whatever the case is, it's an indication of some level of improvement or like more self-awareness, maybe?
Yeah,
maybe?
Exactly.
Either way, it's good.
Correct.
I think one of the other things, and this is like kind of an aside to the financial aspects of this, was, kind of an uproar. Oh, we laid off a bunch of art staff. Then we said we'll never work with AI. And then we hired a position that's like approving computer-generated images or something. And then, oh, look, you released a bunch of marketing materials that uses AI art. And they had a 5-tweet that was like, hey, we messed up. We did it. Let's let's own it and move forward from there. And do you remember the last time Wizards admitted they made a mistake that wasn't like, well, we just released shit with a third mode without testing it?
Yeah,
when it was actually like, hey man, we actually messed up on this. Mythic Edition?
Maybe. So like there was the double and tripling down on OpenGL that comes to mind before they walked back.
Yeah.
And I feel like that was a mistake they owned up to, but their mea culpa was like as they turned their pockets out and realized there was no money in there. Like, sorry, the money we thought that we pouring and just wasn't.
Yeah.
So you can have it back. No, not really. They seem to not want to address any issues, and neither does Hasbro in that regard. So it is nice to see them hopefully apologize and stick to it and mean it this time. Like,
yeah.
Like if AI is a wild place, image generation is wild. Like, it's no longer that meme from what feels like the 1800s of like, I've seen a Photoshop in my day, like a guy sitting real close to the computer. Like, you don't have to know what AI artifacts look like. You just have to know that the image looks a little squirrely. Some of the fine details are weird. And what got me was there was no artist signature.
Yeah, that was the really, like, I've never seen a piece where there wasn't a signature in there, and like
that's what got me.
To me was a dead giveaway. I was like, wait, who did this?
People wanted to call out some of the filaments and light bulb, and somebody was like, it's really weird that this power cord turns into this braided weave all of a sudden. Yeah. Like, they went into the artifacts, and meanwhile I saw that image. I'm like, at a first glance this looks fine. I don't know why there are guild gates in a Shockland secret layer. That one's also a little funny too, but at the end of the day, who did this? I don't see a signature.
Nobody's claiming credit for this.
Yeah. Like, that's what got me on that one. But it is nice to see them walk this back. And the one thing I do wish they would walk back and admit to is something that I have like side noted as part of the previous conversation. It's just like, cardstock sucks, and it is wildly varying across all products, and yet they can't own up to it. They just can't own up to the fact that they've changed cardstock. They'll take that one to the grave. The ship's gonna sink, and then
that they've not only changed cardstock, but that they've changed it by region.
Yeah, that is that part.
The really shocking.
Yeah, Japanese APAC region cards produced in the APAC region are a lot glossier, and you can feel it by touch. But like, even between like commander decks and the list, like the
collector
draft,
to draft or set, there was, there's so many sets. I think AFR was one of them where like, the ink tones were significantly darker on, I think it was either collector or set boosters than any of the other boosters. And people were like, oh, is this fake? I'm like, no, it's just literally from a different line from the same product. Yeah, so that's how bad we are.
I'm glad they owned up to the AI thing. There are a lot of avenues that they have to check on. Maybe this helps them reevaluate internal policies and procedures because, like I said, AI is wild and, like, cool, but also, please, cardstock quality.
Something.
Yeah.
It really got me when they were like, oh, we're using recycled paper with like Kaladesh. And then it came out and I was like, man, this is the paper that counterfeiters used 2 generations ago. What is wrong with you?
Yeah. Like, that's the one big thing I wish they would apologize for. Like, marketing copy is one thing, and there are humans involved in creating that copy and all that other stuff, but like, this actually directly impacts all of the clients, all of your clients, like
every single one.
Own this one as well, please. Please. So anything else before I move into picks? And this was kind of a quick thing we wanted to touch on because the MaRo stuff kind of hit interestingly a little. I mentioned this in the previous episode. It hit differently than what Forsyth was saying about like, whatever, man. I watch people crack boxes for Howling Mines. Like, cool.
A lot of people did. Yeah, this was more. Yeah, this was more of like a things may be changing or this is legitimate.
Yeah.
Rather than what.
All right, so let's take the conversation about the AI art and secret layers and that print run and just like take it on, run with it. Talk about what you want to talk about today for your pick.
So, with the secret layer change, now it seems like forever ago that secret layers became a thing because of how many we've had release, like 400 or 500 at this point. But Long ago, when they started Secret Lairs, there was a benefit that was tied to being a premium store, and that was that you got 2 of every Secret Lair produced. Now, this is relevant because if we are changing fundamentally the way that Secret Lairs are produced, that they are no longer print to demand, that we are producing X amount of them, and once those are sold on the website, they're gone forever, it behooves you to pay attention to the premium stores in your area, because they will have those Secret Lairs. They will have them available, be it sealed, singles, whatever. A lot of people may not remember early on, obviously, the last big successful Secret Lair was obviously the Phyrexian Praetors. That was under the now old was just current model, where it was print to demand.
Yep, yeah.
What you may not remember is some of the early Secret Lairs, when it was I believe it was the, it wasn't League of Legends, was it?
Yeah, Arcane.
Yeah, Arcane, that one.
League
Yeah, it was the Arcane. Yeah, League of Legends, sorry. Some of those actually held their value pretty well straight out of the gate, because those cards didn't exist in the quantities that current Secret Lairs do.
Yeah,
Archaeomancer was one that comes to mind that for a long time was $20 for a foil. It's something that bears paying attention to, because the market has kind of adapted to this on-demand model. The price floor of every new Secret Lair reflects that. The price floor, once it starts shipping, before it starts shipping, pre-orders, at every single point, those singles have reflected the way the market has been working. And I would expect that we see a little bit of a lag before the market compensates for what is the current, or what is now the new current model that was the old model from way back in the day.
Yep.
There's going to be a pretty big market inefficiency here that I would expect, and it's exploitable. And be that, hey, let me check at my premium store to see if they have these, if they have the singles, whatever. Or if it's, you know what, this one looks good, I need to buy it and not wait, assuming I can get the singles that I want. Because this is a change that they said is going live. I don't recall if they gave an exact date for when it goes or not. But we were contacted and told, hey, your guys' distribution for premium doesn't change. You're still getting the same amount of Secret Lairs. You still get the Super Secret Lair, or whatever the yearly one was when it was the Pathways that LGS has got, for free, and Premium got extra. And that's worth paying attention to, because, again, if these start to get good again, there may be a large lag between when your LGS recognizes, or when the market recognizes, what an opportunity it is for financial gain. So just like a market call out of, hey, pay attention to this, this is changing in the future, potential market inefficiency, and we all love exploiting those. So there we are.
Yeah. I think it's been a while, like you said, since people remember that Secret Lairs were limited releases, that even the mediocre ones still performed well because of how limited they were, regardless of the actual theme of the Secret Lair. Some of the limited Secret Lairs in the unlimited time, like Lil Geary, fell flat, but the cats from Philly didn't, and that was purely based on artwork, a little less in the cards on the inside. And so that also becomes more exploitable. You could buy into Secret Lairs again, maybe 1 or 2 copies just to hold, because they'll become a rarity. Go deeper on the ones with the art that people will like. If the Chibi Walkers come back as Secret Lairs, or we see more of the cartoon style cats, that kind of stuff. This Commander deck that's coming out, Dogs and Cats, whatever it ends up being called, whether it's a flip deck or not, if the art is relatable to the 2 previous Cat Secret Lairs, then that's going to be something to look into, and be more interested in as well. And like you said, there's a lot of inefficiency here, and there's also a lot of opportunity to kind of pick your battles and stake your claim on one of these Secret Lairs, go deep if you'd like, and be able to make some coin off of it. So it's I'd honestly forgotten that LGS has got their copies. So
most people did.
I stopped paying attention to Secret Lairs because the majority of them were poop. So
and now if there's fewer, either they all have to be better, or the ones that are good are way better because of it.
Exactly. Yeah. So at the end of the day, this is just a good reminder, like, hey, Secret Lairs are out there, limited quantity. Take a look. It's in a book, and pick up the ones you like.
Okay, sorry.
It's fine. I set you off for that one, so I'm glad you ran with it again. For me, this week, I'm looking at one of my more expensive picks on my list, and we're going to talk about the Reaver Cleaver today. So the Reaver Cleaver is a piece of equipment from Dominaria United that was also reprinted on the list, like shortly thereafter, because Dom U is not that far in the past. It is a legendary artifact equipment, 2 and a red, and says equipped creature gets +1/+1 and has trample. And, quote, whenever this creature deals combat damage to a player or planeswalker, create that many treasure tokens, unquote. And it costs 3 to equip. So basically, for the amount of damage that this creature does, which is at minimum 1 because of the +1/+1, you make a treasure for each point of damage dealt. When I put this on my list in the beginning of September, CK was buying 35 from Dominaria of just the regular art, not the full art. 35 copies at $9.75. TCG Market, there were 74 unique listings for $12.30, and it was just a rope. I had the stocks graph up a moment ago, so I was just kind of waiting for this to move, and it slowly started to move. Then I thought we hit a spike that was unsustainable. I was correct. It came right back down, and then it just started to rocket again, so that's why we're talking about it. Currently, CK is buying 0 non-full art, so that is what it is, and they have 1 copy at $25. But really what we're looking at now is that there are 30 listings left on TCG Player, and the market price is about $25. So basically any copies that you can buy, you should be able to just turn around immediately, because there's nothing left when it comes to this card. CK might have some of the alt versions. I did not check on that today, but I can in a moment. But when we look at this card on the whole, like where it's played in Commander, it's basically the same thing as the last couple treasure-making cards I've talked about, which is just if you're playing red and you want to enter the combat step, here you are. Like we're just out here making treasures in combat. The format on the whole, this falls more in line with Professional Facebreaker and Ancient Copper Dragon than Dockside Extortionist, which is like above and beyond, as the former two require the combat step, and the latter is just an ETB trigger and a combo engine, so they're wildly different. This means that there's a bit more counterplay in the card while it forwards your game plan, but in a pretty interesting way. Ancient Copper Dragon creates treasures based on the result of a die roll, and Facebreaker creates a number equal to the number of creatures that deal damage to a player, but Cleaver creates treasures based on the amount of damage dealt to the defending player or planeswalker, which makes it, like I said, more unique than the others. There is the opportunity for this to make more treasures in a single swing than Ancient Copper Dragon will, but I think on the average, Copper Dragon's probably just going to make more per swing anyway, but this just kind of allows you to play a wider game. Why not play both, for instance? Yep. So this allows us to play Cleaver in a very wide range of decks, and we see that in the suite of commanders represented on EDH Rec. We see everything from decks commanded by Ragavan that just want to turn creatures sideways and end the game quickly via combat, to Jolene the Plunder Queen and the partner pairing of Rogrock and Yoshimaru that effectively want to combo kill using the creation of the treasure themselves as the combo engines for both of those decks. And for reference, they are combo, but in weird ways. So I do want to read Jolene the Plunder Queen, because this is not a card I was familiar with. So Jolene the Plunder Queen costs 2, a red and a blue. A red and a green for a 2/2 that says whenever a player attacks one or more of your opponents, that attacking player creates a treasure token. Cool. If you would create one or more treasure tokens, instead create those tokens plus an additional treasure token. So you effectively create an additional one, and then you sack 5 treasures to put 5 +1/+1 counters on Jolene. So you're basically just stacking on Jolene and looking to kill with commander damage. Yep. And sure enough, when we look back at Yoshimaru says, whenever another legendary permanent enters the battlefield under your control, put a +1/+1 counter on Yoshimaru, Ever Faithful. So that triggers the Cleaver. And then Rogrock is just a low-to-the-ground red commander that can combo with Yoshimaru and Reaver Cleaver, and effectively just kind of like loop through both of them, stack up on Yoshimaru, and then kill with commander damage.
Yep.
So you're basically just kind of playing through that way. And excuse me, I don't think this card represents kind of a taboo method of winning the game within the combat step, like we talked about with Craterhoof. So I actually would expect this to remain a card that's kind of sought after for anyone that wants to push their deck faster and further, because you're able to start making treasures faster than you would with almost any other option out here. This costs 3 to play, and 3 to equip. So in turn 4, you could be making 3, 4, or 5 treasures. Now, timeline-wise, this is one's probably a little bit of a longer haul because the velocity isn't terribly high. This averages about 6 or 7 copies of the DMC version that we're looking at sold per day, but without a restock of the card since the list printing, the prices just kind of run away, which is why we're coming back to this. I held off on the pick to kind of ensure that the demand was real and sustainable, like I said, and we've seen that actually be the case. So this is why we're looking at it now. Though CK isn't buying the DMC non-foil right now, they should start to look for it again, as they have only, at the time of my notes, 1 copy of any version of this card in stock, and it was the DMC non-foil. So regular art non-foil. They didn't have the full art, and they didn't have the list version, just the 1 copy. Now, interestingly enough, there is an anchor on this, and it is a vendor called Rabbit Hole TCG. And once their 21 copies have been removed, and they are currently at $24.69 each, any copies that we buy for under $27 can be flipped back into the open market immediately. So based on current velocity, that'll be in about 2 months to get to Rabbit Hole and then past them. If we want to move these to buy list, you're probably looking at a few more months, maybe close to 3, as CK seems to open up their buy list in a rather limited quantity and kind of at very random times for this card. That was kind of also the problem in picking this, was there's no clear timing for when CK was going to actually buy an amount of these cards.
Yeah.
Now,
I think... Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No.
I was going to say, I think with this, one of the things for me when trying to look at like a regular rhythm for what CK would be turning on and off the faucet, with it being a low run or low open, maybe commander exclusive card, that would be where I would look for that to influence that. Yeah. Because, I mean, if the commander deck itself hasn't been selling, Card Kingdom is far from a company that is hesitant to crack it for the 2 or 3 cards that they can sell.
Exactly.
So that may have a hidden impact on the buy list.
Yep, they're just going to let that, and they have a great buy list. Their buy list has been getting better for Commander. So they're just going to let their buy list do what it's meant to do and bring this card in. The problem is that either as soon as they get it, they sell out, or they're just not getting it at all. So there's really not much for them to be restocking. At the end of the day, though, like I said, when this does hit the buy list, it seems to be kind of at like weird intervals. Right now, they're completely sold out, and they're not buying any of the regular art. They're buying 18 extended art at $14 and 15 from the list at $14. Like, it could be that they just really don't want to sell because the percentage on this is like 56%. If they really wanted to buy this to sell, they'd probably up it closer to 60 or 65. Now, this is a card that is pretty agnostic, like Professional Facebreaker. So when it comes to reprint equity, there's a really good chance we will see this again in the future in a Commander deck. The effect is fairly representative of what WotC envisions Red to be doing Commander, like we've been talking about. So I think we run the risk of a reprint either... I said in the main set in my notes, but I really think it'll be another Commander product of a set coming out. Like the Reaver Cleaver doesn't quite fit with a lot of what we're seeing coming up in the next year or so from a Commander standpoint based on the theming of the main sets. But to say it wouldn't hit in, what is it, not Gloomhaven, that's a game. The Animal set.
Oh God!
But Bloom Barrel, if it does,
Bloom Barrel, Bloom Barrel.
Like it might hit there in the Commander set, like that's fine, but we'll see what it is. Though, with the opportunity to make an overwhelming amount of treasures for minimal investment, this does seem very dangerous in Standard. So I even called that out of my notes. That's why I think it'll be Commander only, because if you're just straight shotgunning 4, 5, 6 treasures starting on turn, 4 or 5, that seems like you're running. It seems very good for Standard. Like you're just gonna run away with that game really quickly. Like by quantity. I've got one from the list. I don't know exactly how I acquired it, so TBD on that one. But if you have the opportunity to kind of sit on like $100 to $150 worth of Reaver Cleavers for about a month or two, and then want to flip them back in the open market, I think that's perfectly fine. I think anywhere from like 0 to 8 is probably where you want to be, and if you want to pick up 0, that's fine. This is, again, this leans into what Red wants to be doing. It's not as competitive as Professional Facebreaker, so this is not a CEDH card by any means. This is pretty much just an EDH card only. So if there's nobody in your local that would look to be doing something like this that just wants to mass generate treasures, then, maybe buying in at a lower quantity is where you want to be. If I was going to pick these up to move them back into the open market, I'd probably sit around 4 or 6 because I'd feel comfortable parking, like I said, about that $100, $150 right in there. I think 8 should be the ceiling, though. You wouldn't get stuck with these. It's just going to take a longer time to turn that profit. So
yeah. No, I think this is really good. I think especially... I feel like there's a lot of treasure cards over the last couple of years that have just been sort of lost in the shuffle because everyone was so focused on Dockside and Facebreaker. Reaver Cleaver, Reign of Riches, like we've touched on a few of them where it's like, no, if this is an evergreen mechanic, which it clearly is, not just because Wizards said it is, but because they've continually engaged with it set after set, specifically with the color red. And this kind of rewards your generic red. I just want to go fast and go big and kill stuff. So it plays into every level of that color's plan.
Yeah.
It may be a little bit too expensive for CEDH, but I mean, Godo Helm runs Helm of the Host, and that's way more. So
yeah, but that's a combo kill win. That's different.
Yeah, that's true. Yeah. But I think this just really hits that invisible battle cruiser casual window.
Yeah.
At a really opportune time for it. Because a lot of people, I mean, just anecdotally from the store, a lot of people are like, look, it's too much for me to keep up with this stuff, so I'm going to have like 2 EDH decks and forget Modern, forget Pioneer, forget whatever. I just want the cards I want from my deck and to convert to that.
Yeah.
And with this being from Dom Yu, which a lot of people have kind of forgotten about at this point, and obviously on the list as well, pretty big opportunity for this card to continue to go up as the quantity dries up.
Yeah. The one thing that made me think this might be a CEDH card is the fact that Ragavan is here as a commander.
Yeah.
I thought like, oh, surely one of the best mono red commanders for CEDH would play this card so you could just win through combat or win faster, like you said, by just generating a bunch more treasures, because that is how
that's what it does.
The curse of the mono red mage is just drawing mountains all game. So any way you can cheat on not playing mountains in your deck or accelerants that are mono rocks that don't do anything else is just above and beyond useful. So I would have expected Ragavan to play a card like this in CEDH, but it doesn't. Instead, it plays it in, regular commander, casual commander, whatever you want to call it. And to me, that points to the fact that this is now how people want to engage with combat as a mono red deck. They just want to sit there and enjoy their game. They want to play a little faster. They want to churn through, and they're just going to beat you about the head and shoulders with a suited up commander or a suited up something else, and just
fatty something. Yeah,
exactly. Get the game over that way. You don't have to combo kill. You don't have to just go through some extensive series of traps and tricks to get through to the end of the game. No, you can just put the Reaver Cleaver, a pair of boots, and a sword on your commander, and just shove in, and perfect, cool, end the game that way. Or just build a really tall commander. That one's really funny too. We're just gonna put all the counters on this one, and just
this one guy gets it all, and I hope you don't kill it.
Yeah, we're gonna
please don't swords.
Put it through a Rogue's Passage and have at it, or a Whisper Silk Cloak and go. And I think for a card like this that plays so interestingly in that regard, it makes it more appealing for me as somebody to look at this as a spec, because this doesn't hit. We've talked about being a card that casts a wide net across this goes into tokens themes, but it also plays into landfall and this other stuff. So we've got a lot of cool themes that go with it, or this bridges the gap between casual and competitive. And no. We enter combat. That's what we do here. How you want to engage in combat, the rules of combat that you are trying to set here, wildly different across decks, but we are going to enter combat, and we're coming for you with the axe.
Every chance we get.
Yep. So for me, that is my pick this week after Schooner last week. And I think next week is another piece of equipment if my schedule is set up properly. So that'll be a fun conversation.
All right.
But
We're abandoning big dumb green stuff for EDH, for equipment for EDH.
look, I'm not saying you can't put this on big. Okay, hold on. Can I give you a hint without going way past? Hold on. I set up my schedule a while ago, and now I just don't remember. Because it's nope. Sorry, I'm not talking about equipment next week.
Okay.
After that, I've got 2 more weeks of equipment though. So,
Okay, good. There we go.
Well, I do have a big dumb creature for next week, so don't worry. I'm not.
I also have a big
Not
number
going too
for
far.
next week.
But for at MtG Cabal Cast on Twitter, Facebook, Patreon, and YouTube, I am at HaltDie and Reptar. You are.
At Damon_Thurston.
We'll see you next week.